Hello everyone, welcome to this channel. Today we are going to discuss about a very interesting area of law, which is the law of contracts. Law of contracts holds a very important and significant position when it comes to legal reasoning in CLAT. So let's not waste any further time and let's look at some important uh, some important definitions when it comes to law of contracts. And the whole idea is to make this learning as simple as possible so that you not only understand these definitions or concepts, but you're also able to analyze them properly and apply these concepts to the facts at hand, which is what CLAT demands. Okay, so let's start with this concept of contracts. If you look at the legal definition of contracts in the Indian Contracts Act, so Indian Contracts Act 1872 is the relevant statute or law that governs contracts in India. Now, Indian Contracts Act defines a contract as an agreement which is enforceable by law. So now we can observe two things here. The first is that a contract needs to be an agreement. What kind of an agreement? An agreement that is enforceable by law. So let's break it down. First part is this, an agreement, and the second part is enforceability. Before we look at what an agreement is, let's discuss enforceability aspect. The simple meaning of enforceable by law is that courts can enforce such an agreement. And to make it even simpler, if you approach a court of law with a piece of document in your hand, let's call it an agreement, and you request the court to do something based on that agreement, if the court is able to give effect to your prayers, the court can enforce such an agreement. But if the court is not in a position, let's look at an example based on the basis of which we will be able to understand the meaning of enforceability. So A and B are two parties. They enter into an agreement. A pays to B rupees 100 for killing C. So basically A tells B that if you kill C, I will pay you 100 rupees. B goes ahead, kills C. So C is gone, and then B demands 100 rupees from A. However, A refuses to pay 100 rupees and goes back on his words. Now what does B do? B approaches a court of law, approaches a court and asks and requests the court to enforce this agreement against A. Approaches a court and requests the court to enforce the agreement against A. What will the court do in this kind of a scenario? The court will look at the objective. Court will look at the objective of this agreement. Now, what is the objective of this agreement? The objective is to kill someone. Question is this objective legal or illegal? Now, all of us know, even if we are not lawyers, let's say, a layman would also know that killing somebody is illegal. Therefore, this object itself is illegal. Now, we will come across this concept later, but even by applying pure common sense or logic, we are in a position to say today that any agreement, the object or the objective of which is illegal, has to be an illegal agreement, has to be illegal per se, and therefore this type of agreement is not enforceable. So we've clearly seen this, that the murder example that we saw, this kind of agreement is not enforceable. Now let's come back to our definition. Murder agreement. Murder agreement is not enforceable, which means that it is not a contract. Why is it not a contract? Because we saw that in order for contract formation, we need two things. Both the conditions need to be fulfilled. Number one, there has to be an agreement, and number two, that agreement needs to be enforceable by law. Since one of these conditions is not getting fulfilled, therefore the murder agreement that we saw is not a contract. Now this brings us to our conclusion. You must have solved Venn diagrams in logical reasoning. This is the smaller circle, this is the bigger circle. Now the bigger circle is agreement and the smaller circle is contract. So one thing is clear, that all contracts are agreements, but all agreements are not contracts. Why do we say so? Again, I repeat, only those agreements are contracts which are enforceable by law. So that is the conclusion of today's class. And if somebody asks you what is an agreement, what is a contract, when we go further into these discussions, you will be in a position to explain all the technical aspects as well. But for today, you just remember this, that there is a difference between the terms agreement and contract. And what is that basic difference? The basic difference is that only those agreements which are enforceable by law are contracts, and not all agreements. Okay, now in the next classes we will look at all these terms, the definitions of all these terms. What is an agreement, what is an agreement, then we will come across, then we will finally be able to understand the complete meaning of contracts. So till then, see you, bye bye, take care, and study properly and study wisely. Thank you.